Live from the 4.5-inch studio in the heart of the suburbs of downtown Salem, Virginia, this is Small Room, Loud Stories. Good afternoon. I am here with Krystine
Krystine Smith, yeah.
Krystine Smith. Okay. Where did I get Nicole from?
That is what I've got on my profile. I don't have
Okay.
my last name listed on my Facebook.
So it's not my fault.
No.
Are you okay with your last name being on
yes,
the? Okay.
that's perfectly fine.
Okay. And I'm happy that I got Krystine correct. I'm not going to try to pronounce the first word of your band
Performing name, yes. It's Euterpea.
Euterpea. Okay.
Euterpea.
I was close. I was going more towards an oi.
Yeah, it's like Utopia, except I've shifted it a little bit. Euterpea is the Greek muse of like lyrics and music, and she's often depicted playing flute. And so when I was searching for a nice performing name, because I performed at a lot of Renaissance fairs, I settled on that. But I just shifted it from Euterpea to Euterpea because it sounds like Utopia, kind of mixed in with Euterpe, and yeah.
I really like it. It's a interesting name. I've not seen it before. That's why I didn't want to try to pronounce it.
It makes for fun times because everyone's always asking me how it's said.
Okay, Euterpea or so
Euterpea.
with the Y sound in there. Euterpea. Okay,
Yes.
all right, very good. And Euterpea Fantasy Flute
Yes.
is the full name of it. And so I've seen a few of the videos on your on the project page.
Yes.
And you had one really big flute.
My bass flute.
Okay, so that was the question. Is that actually a bass flute?
It is.
And how heavy is that?
It's not so bad, I guess, because I am a flutist. Instruments tend to be lighter. I think about in comparison to something like a tuba, it's still pretty light.
As I said, I have watched some of the reels that you have on Facebook through Euterpea Fantasy Flute. And I'm not normally a flute music kind of guy, but I've found it very interesting and energetic, but calming at the same time.
Thank you. Yeah.
So that's kind of a traditional Celtic music, or how would you describe it?
So it's all improvised live fluping when I'm performing, typically as Euterpea. I mean, I do have a repertoire of Celtic music and like other classical music and all kinds of different styles, really. But what I prefer to do is improvised live looping, and it doesn't really fit necessarily into a specific genre, I wouldn't say, but certainly more in the ambient fantasy world of music.
Right.
I do a lot of like extended techniques is what we would call them in the flute world, but like some beatboxing for rhythm, and then I use a vocal effects pedal actually because flute is so similar to the human voice in terms of timbre that is just a really nice way to add harmony to it. So I typically, when I'm performing, to make my life easy, will just keep the harmony pedal on the octave so that I'm not having to constantly change things mid-performance.
Right.
But I'll typically have some sort of harmonic progression or drone going, and I improvise over top of it.
Okay.
And sometimes it's with bass flute or C flute or alto flute. I also play a lot of different bamboo flutes. I play Celtic whistles like low D whistle and a traditional like Irish tin whistle, and I have so many different folk instruments from around the world. Some of them I play better than others.
Well, I can imagine that there's going to be those that are a little bit easier than others.
Yes.
So was it your love of that style of music that led you to the flute, or your love of the flute that led you to that style of music?
Funnily enough, when I started in band in school as a kid, I wanted to play drums. And my family told me no, because drums are too annoying. And then I started learning to play piccolo, which is famously one of the most annoying instruments, and it's also my favorite.
Is that because it's so high pitched?
It's very high pitched, and it's hard to play well. There's a reason that people get annoyed with young piccolo players, because it takes a lot of skill and everyone needs time to learn. It's just like with any instrument, when you pick it up at first, it sounds a little interesting, but it's such a high-pitched instrument that the learning period can be a little painful.
Well, and there's a lot, like what I do with guitar and now banjo, there's a lot of repetition. The same 4 notes that you're trying to slide right into and do them properly. So you're hitting that, and that can be very annoying for people who aren't real good with those repeated noises and things like that.
Yeah.
So.
But the reason I actually got into playing like this style of flute music, so I was in the Marine Corps. I was in the Marine Corps band.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. I was in not the Marine Corps band, like the President's Own, but one of the fleet bands. And like you were saying with repetition, it just gets so repetitive, playing the same things over and over and over again. And I found that as much as I loved serving my country, being in the Marine Corps as a musician just wasn't the life for me. And so it really kind of sucked out some of the love for me, and then going to music school, and I didn't love my instrument anymore. And I started doing bamboo flutes and things like that as a way of refinding that love. And then I saw a guy live looping with violin and realized, ooh, I could do that. And that's where I really started diving into this style of music. I'm a huge nerd, love going to the Ren fairs, and so just making some fantasy music really appealed to me.
And I saw or I heard on some of the videos that you have that there is that loop there. Do you create that loop live while you're on the stage?
Yes, nothing is ever pre-recorded.
That's neat.
Yes.
I know guitarists who do that. I'm guitar centrist, so
of course, yeah.
I talk about it in those terms, but I know guitarists who do that. I don't know if you know Tyler Parrish.
I do.
Okay. He does that live, where he'll create the loops, and I'm just like, that is very neat, and I can't do it. I don't have that kind of coordination. I'm lucky if I can strum and change chords at the same time.
It definitely challenged my rhythm and my intonation, because suddenly I'm hearing myself like played back to me. I'm like, oh, I'm not in tune here.
Yeah, well, that sounds like
and
it.
if you get the rhythm wrong in terms of the loop, the whole thing's thrown off.
All right.
But that's kind of fun live, because what are you going to do? Are you going to stop mid-song, or are you just going to try and roll with it and make something really weird in the moment? And I like to just roll with it. And suddenly I'm in a weird time signature, but it's fun.
I love that. Do you ever like let the audience know afterwards, oh, that was kind of you just saw something completely new there?
Sometimes. Or I'll just get in the moment and start playing without, usually I have a thought process going into a song,
Right.
But sometimes I just will go with the vibe. And like I haven't thought about the key signature or anything like that beforehand, I'm just vibing. And I'll realize I'm in something really strange, like E flat harmonic minor or something like that, like midway through. I'm like, wow, I just had to pick a hard key, didn't I? Just all the flats, and throw some double flats in there, why not?
I have a coworker, well, she doesn't work there anymore, but she was a horn player, but I don't know which kind of horn. And one time, because I'm a music theory, especially guitar theory nerd. You probably saw my tonics chart up on the wall there. I don't know if you're familiar with the tonics chart.
I am not, but I'll have to take a look at that before I leave, because that looks, it's lots of things that I recognize, but I've never seen it put out in that particular way. So.
Right. But anyway, so we were talking about, I was explaining about octaves on the guitar and how easy, in my opinion, they're very easy.
Yeah.
And she's telling me about octaves on the horn, where you've only got your notes from the
valves.
The valves.
Yeah.
But then you have to change the way you're blowing through it,
All the
how you're pursing your
and
lips.
How much air. Yeah.
Yeah, that seems very difficult. I imagine the flute is very much the same way.
Well, because flute has so many more keys than a horn.
Okay.
There's lots of different combinations, but where that gets fun is there is the correct fingering for notes. There's alternative fingerings for notes that you might use for a slightly different sound, or to correct something like pitch-wise. That's especially prevalent with like piccolo. But then there's the harmonics. Just like they can play harmonics on a horn, we can play harmonics on flute, and that leads to some really fun sounds. And with the low flutes in particular, with the bass flute, when I first started playing bass flute, it's a little, the air control is very different from the C flute because it's so much bigger, and I would find myself accidentally sliding into harmonics. And so it took a lot of training my embouchure and my ear, because if you don't know the note that you're searching for, how are you going to know you're playing the right note when it's that easy to slide into a harmonic?
You said that word embouchure?
Embouchure, that's the shape of the mouth on the mouthpiece.
Okay. I didn't know that actually had a
It has a
its own name.
fancy name that's spelled real pretty.
And so how does the harmonics sound? When you talk about the harmonics, what would we hear if we're hearing harmonics?
So I can pull out my flute.
Absolutely.
One. It's really just moving through the different pitches, and you think of playing an octave is pretty much just playing a harmonic if I'm not shifting my fingers. But I can also play other notes within that. So if I'm just going to play a D.
And what is this here?
This is a C flute. This is just a classical flute.
Okay.
So that's your standard low D.
Right.
It's a D right above middle C. Now, if I were to play the next D, it would be, I just pick up one finger,
Okay.
and I pick up another finger. But if I were to do this as harmonics, so the notes I just played were, so that just moved me up the entire D chord, D major chord.
Okay.
It was just D and A, and then up in the upper harmonics, I hit an F sharp.
So you can control it through the valves, but you can also control it by not even moving the valves, and just doing it through breath control.
With breath control and very gentle shifts to the embouchure. If you think about someone like Jethro Tull, he did a lot of harmonics and a lot of other extended techniques because he wasn't classically trained originally, so he
Right.
wasn't afraid to push the button. And it's hard to play a melody all in harmonics because, again, your fingers aren't doing what your ears expect it to do, so you really have to know the notes that you're aiming for with the harmonics.
Right.
That's definitely more challenging than just playing a melody the way that it's written.
But clearly there would be a upside to doing it that way, probably just quicker, or maybe not.
I wouldn't find it quicker personally, just because I'm used to playing with the normal fingerings. But what it does do is it alters the tone, like the timbre, just enough that it can kind of mimic more of that traditional wooden flute sound. It does also, the intonation isn't quite as on point when you're playing the harmonics.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes a little bit softer, not as bright, and so it mimics more of the sound of a historical flute in some ways. And there are other just not intonation, I'm sorry, other timbre reasons why you might want to use it, just to play a little softer.
Well, yeah, I guess in the same sense, I can play the same note in several areas on the guitar neck.
Yes.
They're exactly the same note technically, but there's a little bit of difference in the way it sounds depending on if you're closer to the bridge or to the head
Exactly.
of the guitar. So I can see where that would make a difference in the tone that you want
Yes.
out of it. Okay. Well, that's very interesting. I imagine it takes a while to get used to doing that and not get lightheaded and fall over.
Especially with the bass flute.
Oh,
When I first started
you would
with
need
that.
a lot more air to get it even started. It's almost like a bagpipe.
So there are lower flutes than just the bass flute. There's the contrabass flute, which is, if you were to stretch out the tubing, it's as tall as I am. So it stands up and it has this shape that comes across like this and then bends back down and goes down to the ground. It's huge. And I've only ever played them on occasion when at conferences or a friend's got one, and it takes so much air, and yes, you're dizzy. And it's also quieter because it's so low. Just like you need to amplify a bass guitar for a contrabass like that, you really do have to be aware of volume because it tends to be quieter, at least for me as a not skilled contrabass flute player.
Yeah, you have to get really used to that that deep breath, and then you have to, I guess, marshal how much you let out at any time so that you're not constantly panting into
Just
the microphone.
constantly running out of air.
So with the different flutes, are there different? I can't think of it. I'm an old man. I haven't written moments like this. I know with like harmonicas, they have different keys for the harmonicas.
Mm-hmm.
Do flutes have different keys?
So for a silver flute, like you would see in a band or an orchestra, it plays chromatic. So you can hit all the notes that you could hit on guitar. Well,
Right.
in different range, but of course. But with my bamboo flutes or my my wooden flutes, my whistles, oftentimes for them they're set to a specific key. So like I have bamboo flutes that are in major keys. I have a D major, a G major, a C major. I have some that are in minor keys. I also have some that are in more like world scale type things. So I have like an Arabian flute. I have a flute that is modeled after an Egyptian ney. So I'm not remembering the exact notes off the top of my mind. It's in the key of D, but as for what the exact notes are, I don't remember.
It has more microtonal,
Yes.
I would guess, because the Eastern music has more.
Has the semitones and
Right.
things. And then I also I have flutes that have like pentatonic scales. So a lot of them are just what they're made of just leads to different types of tonalities
Okay.
between like the bamboo or the different types of wood or my whistles are actually made of carbon fiber, and I have a wooden one as well. And so it leads to very minor differences in tonality. If you were to ask my husband, they all sound the same. Very supportive man, but he doesn't understand why I have so many flutes.
I can imagine. I don't even have a lot of flutes.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't even have a lot of guitars in my mind, especially compared to the guitar people I know.
I was gonna say, you've got room on your wall for a few more over here, you know?
Well, I actually have, I have the beam, it's right behind you, that will go up on that wall that will hold the black
Yes.
slat of wood there.
Oh, I got sidetracked
Oh.
by your ukulele.
That my wife found that at Goodwill. She is a Goodwill crawler. She's
Nice.
there all the time. But that wood will go up on that wall, and that's where I'm going to probably put my electric guitars and have the acoustics. I'm more of an acoustic player than an electric player.
Yeah.
But I want to have electric guitars around just in case.
Yeah, you never know when you might need that sound.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I've only got the 2 electric guitars currently. I've got 2 more, but I'm in the process of selling them.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have an Epiphone viola bass.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
It's modeled on if you ever saw Paul McCartney's bass with the Beatles, that he had Hofner, but it was that violin with a long neck, or a viola with a long neck shape. So that's what that viola bass that I have is. So I'll hang that up because it's pretty light.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hang the banjo up. That's about 13 or 14 pounds.
It's heavy. Yeah, banjos are heavy.
Very heavy, especially if you've got the resonator on there.
Yeah.
I could save my back a lot of trouble by taking it off, but I just think a banjo looks right with a resonator on.
And it sounds better.
Sounds so much better.
I actually.
Well, not when I play. not
when I'm playing
learning
it
this
either.
year.
I actually do play guitar, probably not anywhere on the level that you do, but I tell, so I'm a music therapist when I'm not performing, and I tell my patients that I make it happen on guitar, but my guitar is really more there to support my voice. But I do play guitar and ukulele. I've recently acquired a bass guitar and a banjo and a mandolin and banjolele. Being a music therapist is a great excuse to buy instruments.
Oh yeah, that gives you all the reasons in the world.
But I wouldn't say I'm nearly as good on those as I am with my flute.
Well, we'll have to. I mean, if you were better at me on guitar and that good on the flute, I would just be feeling.
Yeah.
And I'm not really great on guitar. I've gotten a lot better since I started working with guitars for vets because that kind of forces you to. I've had students that are starting from rank beginning, and I can take them through the 10 weeks without any problems. But I've had some students that started with a
Basic
pretty
knowledge.
good base of knowledge, and one of them wanted to learn theory.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, oh, you don't know
You're in
two
the right
unleashed.
place.
You don't know two unleashed. So that's been a lot of fun, and it forces me to pay more attention to the fundamentals than I otherwise might if I was just noodling around on the guitar.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, we were talking about your bamboo flutes are in keys, or different flutes that you have are in a key.
Mm-hmm.
If you're playing a song that has a key change in the middle of it, are you able to accommodate that on the flute, or do you have to do a quick switch?
It would depend. Well, first of all, when I'm playing my own music, I get to decide if there's going to be a key change or
Well,
not.
absolutely.
But if I were playing in like a group with others, it would really depend on the song and what key is switching to. So, like with my whistles, my D whistle, I can easily play in G major on that. There's fingerings that are easy to switch into, and then of course with the relative minors, it's easy to shift into that. But if I were to have to play in a different key other than D or G on that D whistle, or relative minors, I would have to either switch whistles, or I would have to start using half fingerings, which is where you only cover half the hole with your fingers. And there are people out there that are masters at that. I am not one of those people. But it's very possible to do those things. And the same idea of half holes, like half fingerings, apply with a lot of my wooden and bamboo flutes. But where I would see that happen most commonly is probably when I would be playing whistle in like a session setting or something.
Okay. All right. So you were interested in the flute since you were a child.
Yes.
And did that just develop more and more over the years? You said you went into the military as a flutist.
Yeah.
Is it flutist or flautist?
It's take your pick.
Take your pick.
Yeah, it depends on who you're talking to, and I use them interchangeably.
When I saw you with that bass flute, I actually thought, that's not a flute, that's a flout. But so it was basically a lifelong love of that.
It's a lifelong love of music. My great grandmother was choir director. My grandparents were in the choir growing up in church, and I was fortunate I had my great grandmother with me until I was in my mid-20s. So that just music was such a part of my life with them, and when it came time to pick your, what do you want to do in school, I was already like actively singing and had taken some very, beginner piano and guitar lessons, and flute just seemed like the better choice because I was very much in that whole, well, boys play the brass instruments and girls play the woodwind instruments, which is completely not true and not the way that we should pick instruments, but that's what I was thinking is, I guess I'm going to be stuck with clarinet or flute because my parents said I couldn't play drums. So I picked flute, and I loved it. I did everything I could to have an instrument in my hand all throughout high school, through middle and high school, and then of course I had that time frame where it was hard for me to enjoy music making. And like I said, when I'm not performing, I'm a music therapist. That's my full-time job. And it's really hard to be a music therapist and be asking your patients to do things that you're not even doing for yourself. I would ask them to improvise, play for me how you feel, make sure you're setting aside time to play your instruments independently during the week and all of these different things. And I realized I'm not doing that for myself. And so that's when I really started digging in with my bamboo flutes more and expanding that collection, because for me the classical flute still had so many just painful connotations from having had some challenging moments in the military and then some not great experiences in college, because I had definitely had a tough love instructor who
I read a little bit about that. You had a post about.
Oh yeah, I did post something about that recently. Yeah, he wouldn't let me sit down in lessons. And I, at one point, being fresh out of the Marine Corps, I was regularly having panic attacks and I didn't know what they were. And I would be like in a session, or in a lesson rather, freaking out. And I don't know what's happening in my body, because at this point I didn't know that, hey, you have PTSD and you're having a panic attack.
Right.
And he was like, well, what do you do when you're stressed out? And I was like, I run. And so he just like chased me down the hallway yelling, run, run, run. And just other experiences like that where I didn't feel like I belonged in the flute world.
Right.
And so my bamboo flutes and my world flutes were just more welcoming than classical flute at that time. And now I just strive to make music a more welcoming place for everyone, whether I'm being a performer or a therapist.
I'm sorry to laugh. It's just it's such a ridiculous thing. I don't like strict adherence to the rules kind of attitude. It's especially when it's something as minimal as whether or not you stand or sit.
Yeah, and the reason I needed to sit is like my service-connected disability from being in the Marine Corps, which I had just gotten out of. I had a pretty significant hip injury.
Well,
and so it's like, of course I need to sit down sometimes.
Yeah, and I'm at the age that, if I sit down and play guitar, people are like, okay, yeah, that tracks. Of course he's going to sit. Look at him.
When I sat at the Renaissance Festival when I was performing last weekend, and I sat down because I was just getting this bad cramp through my entire like back and hip. And the other gentleman that I share the stage with, he and I tend to go back and forth. His name is Steve Hogg, or Moghorn the Stray when he's at the Ren Fair.
Say that again.
Moghorn the Stray.
Moghorn.
And he always sits down. He's an older gentleman, and he's a fabulous musician. The man is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to music, but he needs to sit down when he's playing. He doesn't need to be up and standing anymore. And so I sat down, and he's like, I knew I would get you with that stool one day. The stool that was there for him.
Well, that's great. And I had a I had a track of mine, but
then I rambled and made you lose it.
Well, no. This is exactly what I want. People don't want to hear me; they want to hear you and talking about your music. Oh, I saw that you have an album. How many? You posted something about a new album. So, how many albums do you have?
I have 2 albums. My first album I recorded in 2020, and then sat on the recording for 3 years because imposter syndrome. And so I recorded it as a way to kind of just cope through the fact that life decided to just be absolutely wild in 2020. And I was already, I had already just finished my master's degree, and suddenly, I had all this free time from having finished my master's degree, and then the whole world shut down, and it just, I needed some way to channel my energy with all of this time stuck at home, and that's what I did. And my second album I recorded after I moved up to Virginia, and that included soundscapes that I had recorded all throughout Appalachia on my travels, lots of water sounds, lots of different flutes. I actually didn't have my bass flute when I recorded the first album. The second album does have the bass flute, and it has some whistle. The first album also doesn't have whistle. I'm working on my third album right now, and by working on it, I mean I've recorded 1 song.
Well, it's like I'm working on my podcast, and I've currently got 1 recording in process.
Yes.
Right now.
Yes.
So let's geek out a little bit on your technology. How are you recording?
I am not the most comfortable technology person, and so I am recording into GarageBand, and
Okay.
I have an inbox audio that I have had since I was in school, so it's like 15 years old, and I plug it up and I plug my pedals into that, and I will live loop straight into GarageBand and edit it from there to the best of my ability. Again, I've found that because the flute is so similar to a female voice, I can use some of those presets because I am just not the best with music technology. If I hadn't had a friend help me, I don't think I would have passed that class in college.
Right. Well, I found GarageBand to be a little frustrating because I would try to record, I have the Focusrite 2i2 that I have 2 mics currently, but I could also plug an instrument directly into it, or an electric guitar.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I one time made the mistake of selecting one of the, I don't know, one of the effects that they applied to it, and then I could not find how to get rid of. I could change the effects, I knew how to do that, but I couldn't change it, turn it off so that I was just getting dry signal, because I'll do the processing afterwards. I don't want to record it this way. I'll do the processing afterwards. And I didn't really know a lot about GarageBand. I'm using OBS Studio now for recording these, but also if I'm playing music or something like that. I originally set up OBS Studio so that I could have a 2-camera setup for my guitar lessons, so that I could have
fingers and face.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And once I got that set up, I thought, well, I could do a podcast too. And so here we are.
Yes.
But I like OBS Studio for recording. It doesn't do anything I don't want it to do. And then I haven't quite mastered it yet, but over on a much more powerful computer, I have DaVinci Resolver that I'll use for editing. It's it's primarily for editing video, but video isn't a big part of this project. Like I said, I'll have maybe get some clips of moments out of there. Like there might be a clip of when you were playing the flute, for instance, just to have a reel for it, just to
promotion purposes.
Just to talk about, hey, here's this episode, here's some of the things that we did in this episode. But I can also edit the audio in there, or just take it into Audacity and edit it in there as well. Audacity's a little easier.
I was gonna say, I've used Audacity. I've also I used Pro Tools when I was in college because that's what we were required to use, and then Ableton Live I've used. But the real reality is when I've used those aren't free, and GarageBand is free, and I do so so infrequently am I truly doing an actual recording project, other than recording some reels to post that do not need to go through that type of system, that I'd rather have free, and I would rather have systems where it's easy to look up YouTube tutorials, because I need those.
Yeah, I use YouTube a lot to get. Actually, I also use ChatGPT and Claude AI to help me. Claude AI helped me to get all of the software installed and running. 30 years ago, I would have been the person diving in and going onto the forums and looking it up, and now I'm just like, I just want it to work. I'm not trying to be a systems admin over here. I just want this stuff to work. So Claude talks me through, and then when it makes a mistake and I explain it to him, oh, that's right, that was a mistake, and talks me through the next step and helps me get that set up.
Okay.
I'll probably use it when I start to do some of the editing. Be like, I can figure this out on my own, but who's got the time? If I've got a resource right there that already has it and can just print it out for me to follow it, that's even better.
Yeah.
So, consider AI for AI is kind of one of those things where there's some issues with AI.
Yeah, it's not my favorite. It's not my favorite.
Understood.
But I get you in that it does make things a lot more accessible. The therapist in me just thinks about accessibility and how much it helps with that. But the environmentalist in me really hates AI, and also the artist in me.
Well, and I share your concerns with the environmental aspects, but I think of it as that's not really AI so much as the people who are running it. You can't really separate the two at this point, but when we speak up loud enough and say you shouldn't be harming the environment, this is a useful tool, but you should find a way to provide it without harming the environment.
Yeah.
Well, let's get away from that then.
Yeah.
So you've got the 2 albums. Where would someone find those?
They're available on any streaming platform. Apple Music, Spotify,
YouTube Music,
YouTube, Google Music, Amazon Music, all of that. I was really torn whether I wanted to put the albums under my real name or under my Renfair performing name, and I realized my real name's not going anywhere, and so I should just use that. So it's my first flute is Euterpea Fantasy Flute, and of course, under my name, Krystine, Krystine Smith. And then my second one is Euterpea Pirate in Paradise. And I've not decided yet quite where I'm going to go with naming the third one, but I'm also one song in, so we got time to figure that out.
So is it mostly instrumental? Is there voice?
It's all instrumental. My dog does make a brief appearance in the second album. I was recording a soundscape of, I think it was rain outside, and he decided to bark. And I thought I had edited it out, and then as I was getting through the final stages of editing, I realized I did not edit it out, but he was like 13 at the time, and he was my baby. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to like that I have a song that's got him bark in it.
I think it would add wonderful ambiance to it. I mean, that's just your household. That's your life.
Yeah.
You know, that's what your music is about, I would assume.
Yeah, and so he does make an appearance in one of the songs, and he is no longer with me, so I'm very glad that he is on that album. And then I don't think I have any with voice as of yet. I've got a few that have like some breath sounds in it intentionally, and then of course some of the flute beatboxing things like, and so that's how I'll do
like that.
Yeah, that's how I'll loop in some rhythm. There's all kinds of different sounds you can go with there. And like I said, some breath sound. I thought about incorporating in some voice because, like I said, I do sing. And I have in my shows before, but I have not done that yet in a recording for an album.
So I would assume that at the point where you're singing, you're going to be singing over a loop that you've already recorded. You can't flute and sing at the same time.
You can if you're really fancy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you?
Not well. Just Rachel can. But no, you definitely can. It's like, it's really not great.
Well, no, but I mean, that's a skill that would have to be developed over
Yes.
bit of time, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's an extended technique that I have practiced and have been better at, and then you stop doing it, and I very quickly lost a lot of that skill set. And so a better flute player could certainly make that happen.
Okay.
For me, I could make it happen. I just need to practice it more.
Yeah. Well, and if it's not an important part of your music, then
Yeah.
there wouldn't be any.
And there's always got to be something new to learn, or you're going to get bored.
Yeah. So when you are recording your albums, I assume it's all you. You're playing all of the instruments?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And how do you determine what the name of this song is going to be?
I am a huge lover of mythology and folklore, and so a lot of my song names are kind of rooted in that. In fact, my most recent song name is actually named after a goddess of despair, because I was just having a really bad day. And so some of them are rooted more in terms of like actual names of mythical beings. Some are just more of this mythological idea. But I had been using a lot of like different goddesses and like women in folklore in names, and I kind of shifted away from that before I published the album for my first album, because I didn't want to use the names of like mythologies that aren't necessarily from my own culture without like taking more time to have a deeper understanding and reverence for them.
Right.
And I have spent a lot more time diving into that type of stuff now. So like at one point I had a song that was named Nimue, who is of course from Arthurian legends. And I shifted it at the time, and I don't even remember why I made that decision to shift the name of that song. And now it's like Woman of the Mist.
Okay.
Because Nimue is the Lady of the Lake. And so Avalon. So I shifted some of the names just because I wanted to be able to really honor and respect something if I was using it, and I didn't feel like I had had the time to really do that when I was choosing different names.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay. And do they all follow a theme on the album? Are they all in the same legends, or are they just kind of wherever you were feeling at the moment? It's
a lot of wherever I'm feeling at the moment, but I actually I I've been doing a lot of reading on like the heroine's journey, which is of course based from Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. He is like kind of the father of modern mythology, if you will. He does a lot of, he's referenced a lot in like Jungian psychology. And I've thought about creating an entire album like based on the heroine's journey. I need a little bit more time to dive into that. I'm also planning an album that's entirely based on like breath work, because like I said, I'm a therapist, and I use a lot of music to guide different breathing practices as a way to like practice some self-regulation and have a skill set that you can use independently to regulate. And so I am planning that. I have everything outlined out. I just haven't done any of the recordings.
Well, sometimes the hardest part is just figuring out what you're going to do, and then it's just a matter of sitting down and doing it.
Finding the time.
Yeah.
I think every creative probably has this, where they've got 12 different projects running in their mind.
Yeah, it seems like I've always got something, too much of something or another going on. I've got so many story ideas I want to write and song ideas I want to get to, and I just don't get around to it because I'm building a recording studio.
Yeah.
So, well, is there anything else that you would like to, what would you like to talk about? You've mentioned several times about being a therapist, musical therapist.
A music therapist, yes.
A music therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And what is that? You've talked about some of it, but what does that entail?
So music therapy is an evidence-based profession that is actually licensed in the state of Virginia. You go to school for 4 years, and that's what I did after I got out of the Marine Corps. I studied music therapy, and it includes different clinical practicums, and then a 6-month internship, and then you take a board certification exam, and then if you live in a state like Virginia, you can get licensed. It's not licensed across the entire country, but that's something we're working towards. But what's cool is, I mean, music's been used for different healing purposes across cultures for as long as there's been music. And in the US, it really became more organized as a profession following World War I and World War II. There were musicians who were going into these treatment facilities and making music for and with people who had been injured in the line of their service, and they were finding that there was a lot of healthcare benefit. And now you can find music therapists working across the lifespan, all the way from babies in the NICU to end-of-life care. And I have worked specifically in mental health throughout my career. I specialize in working with PTSD, specifically PTSD with veterans, because, hey, I'm a veteran with PTSD. But I got out of the Marine Corps, and I remember talking to friends, and they're like, hey, you know, I have PTSD, what can this do for me? And I'm like, I have no idea. I'm a freshman. I know nothing. And so I started diving into that more and just seeing the suicide numbers in the veteran community. And just the more I learned, the more I realized that was the space I really wanted to be and work I really wanted to be doing. And I do love being able to give back to my veteran community. I've also started straying into a lot of work with just women who've experienced different types of trauma, because I also have a private practice that I offer music therapy through. It's called Peak Music and Wellness. And I offer guided imagery in music, which is a depth approach to music therapy. It incorporates a lot of my love of archetype mythology and things of that nature, because you're using music paired with guided relaxation to access these altered states of consciousness. So you're using music to explore your inner world and kind of process through those experiences through a lot of symbolism and imagery. And that was a really powerful part of my healing process and something that I wanted to offer to others. So I feel like I just get all of these opportunities to get pulled in different directions, either performing or being a therapist, but in the end I get to do music all day, every day, and it's great.
That's one of the things I really like about being an instructor with the Guitars for Veterans. Obviously, like I said, it helps me to stay focused on the techniques that I'm trying to teach. I can't teach somebody to use a metronome if I'm not using a metronome myself and know what I need
There's
to.
three metronomes.
but they're important.
They are.
Especially, I really started picking up more when I started playing the banjo, because there's such a tick, 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 tick,
Yeah.
tick, tick, tick timing that you want to stay with. But as you said, giving back. And as also a veteran, it's, when I found out about Guitars for Veterans, I thought, oh man, I learned about this too late to get the free guitar, darn it. But then
you don't need a free guitar.
Right, I already had
You have a
enough.
few.
But I did start thinking, well, I wonder what I can do. And I thought at first, well, I'll just promote them on Facebook, which I don't have that many followers, and they generally ignore me anyway, so I didn't get very far with that. And then I thought, well, maybe I can be an instructor. And very happy to be doing that. The online instructions are rewarding. They're also frustrating because it's online. You're dealing with internet lag. And one of the fun things about music is playing with other people.
Yeah.
And when you're doing it online, it's really hard, because even a half-second lag is enough to throw everything off.
Yeah.
So, but despite that, I've met some really great veterans, some older, some younger, and they're all very enthusiastic about music. And I've had, I think, 6 students now, which is a big deal for me, because the first student, I was a nervous wreck. I'm more of an introvert than anything else. But so I was a nervous wreck, but now I really enjoy doing it. And probably at least half of the students were recommended to do the guitar lessons for their own PTSD or other issues. That it's just great therapy. And I know I feel better when I'm playing music. If I go, because of work or setting stuff up, if I go a week or 2 without playing anything, I just feel itchy. I need to get my hands on the guitar or the banjo again and play something.
Yeah, that's one of my warning signs that things aren't doing good. You should probably start listening and playing music again. If you haven't, you need to take the time to take care of yourself.
So you've mentioned Jethro Tull a couple of times. Do you play Jethro Tull music, or I know mostly you're doing your own thing.
Yeah.
But
I have. I've played a couple of his solos before. I have a little Jethro Tull book that I've kind of played through as a way to challenge some of those extended techniques that he uses. But I wouldn't say I'm not getting on stage and gigging Jethro Tull music, as cool as that would be. I just think that people like that are just really inspiring, because again, you're not afraid to push boundaries and play music the way that you want to play it, rather than sticking to some cookie cutter molds. You have to know how to play within the mold for sure, but good music is going to push the mold sometimes.
Yeah, and reshape it.
Yeah.
So do you ever play with groups?
I do. So I perform with a couple of local groups. I play with Valley Chamber Orchestra. I'm actually part of the board for that. That is a community orchestra that meets at Hollins University. I wasn't able to be part of it for the spring season. I was really sad, because I already had a gig booked the day of their spring concert. I also play with Winds of the Blue Ridge, which is a local community band. It's such a fabulous group of musicians. It's primarily people who are music educators or in the music world in some way, that are just getting together to make music once a week. It's one of the best groups of musicians I think I've played with, and that's saying something, because I went to University of Miami, which is a fabulous music school.
Right.
And then I have played in the past with Fantasia Flute Choir, which is a local flute choir. I've not been able to make that work with my schedule once I started performing more frequently, unfortunately. And sometimes I'll get together with other musicians in smaller settings and play. I really like going to the Irish sessions that happen here on Mondays, but I haven't been able to go in a few years because my Winds of the Blue Ridge meets on Mondays.
Right.
So, but they're also just such a fun group of musicians, and I love I feel like if I'm not playing music in different ways, I get stagnant in my own music making, and so I like having these spaces that make me keep my other musical skill sets sharp, because I feel like it translates to my own music.
Okay. And you responded to my original post about possibly doing a podcast, who'd be interested.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kinfolk
Yeah.
responded this weekend and tagged you as well, and I thought, well, that's the universe telling me something. So I reached out to Kinfolk, and they're busy this weekend.
They're always busy.
And but I reached out to you, and very fortunate because you, as you told me, you've got a booked June.
I do.
By the
This is my
time-
only weekend off.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. This is a fun little break in my usual schedule.
Well, it was very fortunate because it gave me time to, I had just enough time to get everything ready, but not so much time that I'd overthink it and get all anxiety and stuff about, because like I said, you're the first person I've had in for an interview.
Nice.
Conversation, recording.
Yeah.
I don't really feel like this has been an interview kind of thing, and that's not the vibe that I'm going for.
It's more casual. Yeah.
I have a couple of friends who are in the music world, although I'm assuming they're probably in different grooves than you are.
Probably.
Will Henson, Gary Hall, he's a drummer, a good friend of mine. They've agreed to come in and do a recording, but
Nice.
getting musicians at a time, it's like herding cats.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So getting people to have the time to come in. If you're a working musician, you're busy.
Yeah.
And
Especially if it's you're a working musician and you have a 9 to 5, you're really busy.
absolutely. So, but I'm very happy that you come in and had a really good time and learned a lot.
Yeah.
What are we missing? What else is there that I haven't covered, or in my growing stature as a host for a show like this?
I feel like that's pretty good. That's about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming in, and we'll definitely be interested in seeing where your projects take you from here. I'm going to look up your albums, and when I do post this, I'll put links to the albums and well, anything you like, actually. So,
That'd be great.
all right.